Boom. And we'll share the screen in just a minute. So instead of doing in the news, sorry, Shannon's name's just bold and proud right on the front screen. I'll move it. Help you out there, Shannon. At least your camera's not on. I've done that before. Instead of in the news, I had something happen this weekend that really kind of emphasized the problem a problem I have with organizations and that we see a lot of organizations have, we'll kind of talk about today. And that is, there's kind of this double-edged sword with managers when it comes to problem solving. And that is, you need systems in place and everybody needs to follow the rules. So like, I have these rules in place and I have this system and you follow it to the T, and that's how you solve the problem. But then every so often, a problem arises, and you're all customers, so you've had this happen, where you're like, hey, can I do this? And they're like, no, like you can't substitute American cheese for pepper jack cheese. And it's like, why? You have pepper jack cheese. I'm like, yeah. It's like, why can't you? And they're like, well, we don't have a button for it, and there's no rule in place for substituting, so I don't know what I would charge you. And as a consumer, you're like, this is stupid. Just do it, right? And that's the double-edged sword between having rules and policies in place that you want to follow to a T, because if you deviate, it could cause unforeseen problems, right? Versus sometimes as a manager, you have to have common sense. And I can't look at someone and tell them when to do that and when to not do that, right? Like I can't tell you when you should break the rule and when you shouldn't. It's just a case by case. You have to develop your critical thinking abilities, ability. Now, I'll give you two examples of how both can be a problem. And one happened this weekend, and I'm just hot about it, so I'm going to talk about it. And that was, I was coaching my son's soccer game this Saturday, and I got there, and a team came from way out of town to have practice or to have the game. And we're there, and the game starts at noon, and noon rolls around, and there's no refs. And you're waiting for the refs. Now, you can't be too hard on the refs because they're volunteer. They're always high school kids. But they have to be there. And this is a competitive league. We have trophies, and we keep score, and there's brackets. And they didn't show up. And we waited, and we waited. And then we called the office, and they were like, oh, we're going to try to get refs out there. But now it's like 12:30. So I've been waiting for a long time. I have all these parents, literally close to 100 people just waiting for this game. And it's getting hot. And I'm like, well, one of the coaches, we're 8 years old. Chill out, right? One of the coaches is a certified ref. I think we can agree he'll be fairly non-biased. Just let him go out there and ref. And they're like, we can't do that. It's in the rule book that they can't be a ref. We're like, okay, well, can we scrimmage? And they were like, no, can't scrimmage, because if somebody gets hurt, it's on us. And so my solution to the problem, and I'm technically the assistant coach, was, you know what we should do? We should say, hey, you guys are wearing jerseys, we're wearing jerseys, and we are at a public school on a public field. So let's just have a fun scrimmage. Somebody start a timer on their phone. This guy's going to ref unofficially. And at the end, the team that loses will just forfeit. We'll just call the office and say, I forfeit, and just count that as the loss, right? That was my solution. I thought that was a good solution, right? Yeah. We just, handshake deal. We're 8 years old. Chill out. Yeah. And that's what we did. And they played the game and whatever. My team lost. It happens. But our coach was the ref. So, who complains? And at the end, we had kept score. They kept score. We both agreed on the score. Great. 10 minutes before the game ended, one of the officials showed up, actually the head ref, to see what was going on. We told them what happened, and they yelled at us for doing it, saying, if somebody got hurt, blah, 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 you can't count this game. You can't do this. You can't do that. And we just got ripped for it. And all the parents told us, you guys did a great job. And we said, well, okay, we forfeit. They win, and we left. And so my solution worked out in the end anyway. So go to hell. I don't care. I have a doctorate. I don't need to coach. I don't need to coach 8-year-old soccer. But that was one of those situations where I decided, honestly, because the risk was minimum for me, I'm not getting sued. They're getting sued. That was a problem we needed to break, right? Or a problem that we needed to break the standards, whatever. Now, I know why they have those rules in place, and I get it. And it's mostly volunteers, so they're not in the business of making big critical decisions. And it's a Saturday, so you couldn't get a hold of anybody. Now, the opposite of this is my friend who's a nurse. And my friend who's a nurse, and if you've ever been a nurse or talked with nurses, he comes in at night, and you're switching out with somebody else, which means you're taking over all of their patients. And sometimes, not sometimes, most of the time, everybody's on some kind of med schedule. This person was given this med at this time, they can't have it for 4 more hours. This person was given this med, they can't have it for 6 hours. This person's meds are ready, whatever. And he described to me that such a complicated shift when you come in to take over someone's patients. So he developed a colored chart. Basically, it was a block chart of colors, and it was like, at this time, everybody that's blue needs to get the med that's highlighted in blue. And then everybody, 30 minutes later, everybody that's red needs to get the med that's highlighted in red. And you could basically just come in and have the chart, and it would work. He came in, didn't talk to any supervisors or anybody. He just told everybody this plan, and then he put the chart up, and everybody started using it. And you all may see the problem with this. He came back 48 hours later for a shift, and they had ripped it down, taken everything down, and were like, you cannot do this. Because it's probably a good idea, but no one's trained on it. The managers didn't know about it, and if anything was to go wrong with this, hell to pay, right? And those scenarios, honestly, in my mind, aren't super different, but also drastically different about when to break the rules and when not to break the rules and when they work and when they don't work. Maybe one day I'll come up with a good example of 2 high-stakes cases in which you should break the rules and not. Actually, there is a minimum. In ethics, we teach an example of a car rolling off a cliff into the water, and a cop is there, and there's a kid in the car. And technically, protocol is you can't make yourself a victim, so you shouldn't go down the dangerous rocks to get the car. You have to wait for the proper equipment. And that's a time that a lot of people will break the rules to save the kid, right? And it's like, you're technically violating all protocol, but what cop's going to get suspended for that, But it's in place to keep people safe. I should have the chat up. I ref youth soccer games, and I hate the dumb rules that some fields have. Yeah. And, we're Collinsville, Oklahoma. We're a small town. We're 8 years old. It's not a big deal.
Was the senior ref like high school or like an old?
No, he was like an adult.
So you think he does this for a living?
Maybe.
If that's the case, maybe he's just, people with a little bit of power likes to abuse the little bit of power they have.
I mean, he was definitely angry. I didn't get any of it. The head coach did. But
I doubt the head refs of like a rec league. Is like doing that full time. I don't know though.
He doesn't look like a soccer player. He was my age or younger, but he was not a kid. But the refs are always kids. They're always high school kids. So I never yell at them. I shake their hand. We're always friendly with the ref. And also, again, I don't care. It's not hard to ref a soccer game anyway.
Not at that age.
No, it's arguably has some of the lightest rules. It's just wherever the ball goes out, it's fine. They don't even call offsides.
Oh, man.
Yeah, which is a nightmare if you do call offsides. So we're going to jump into problem solving. Some of the older refs do take it more seriously. That's true. Some of the older coaches do as well.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. We'll talk about the problem solving model, types of creativity, conceptual blocks, principles of management. I'll end with what I call the managerial toolkit. It's just some things that the book doesn't show you on problem solving techniques. But first, we'll talk about analytical and creative problem solving. Analytical problem solving is the type of problem solving that you use multiple times a day. Some problems are not amenable to rational analysis, but some are. The focus of an analytical problem is to get rid of the problem. This is what you all do almost all the time. You are hungry, so you eat. That is analytical problem solving. I know that eating has calories that'll make me feel less full or less hungry. I don't know, whatever. If you know all the science behind why that is, whatever. But you know that eating makes you less hungry. Yeah. Some things are, put gas in your car. Your gas is low. Some things are actually more complicated problems, but because you do them all the time, this is a simple solution. When it comes to when I'm doing data analysis for my job, I know if I get certain error messages, it's automatic. I do this, and that solves the problem. Yay, whatever. Creative problem solving occurs less frequently, and this is beyond using an analytical approach. It is thinking outside the box, and we'll talk about it, and we'll talk about the different types of creative problem solving. But analytical problem solving is very simple. Define the problem, separate fact from opinion. So what is the clear problem? This is actually extremely difficult to do. Defining the problem is, sometimes within organizations, much more complicated. I worked with a company one time in a consulting role, and they had employees that weren't meeting expectations, essentially. They weren't reaching performance goals, but employees 4 years ago in the same position did meet performance goals. So employees aren't meeting performance goals. The problem is employees not meeting performance goals, but the way the company defined the problem, or at least the managers, was these employees suck. They're not meeting performance goals. So the employees are the problem. But the thing is, it wasn't the employees themselves. It was actually the tools that they had been using to do their job had been cut because of, just reduction in cost. So they were losing some of the things they needed to do their job well. So the problem is not the employees suck. The problem is they don't have the tools to do the job. But on the surface, it just looks like not reaching performance, employees are the problem, boom. But if we're clearly defining the problem, that was not the problem. The problem was not having the correct resources to do the job. So that's a completely different fix. The fix between, in fact, what the company actually ended up doing was they thought that the employees were the problem. So what did they do? They got rid of the employees and they got new employees in, and they also didn't reach performance. So then their thought was, it's not that the employees we had are bad. It's that all the employees are bad. And they actually said college students are lazy and nobody wants to work anymore. So it was all the employees that we could hire are bad. That was the problem. So then they thought they needed to do more overseas hiring, and then they needed to increase training. So they started training and trying to make bad employees good employees. And then no matter how much training they did, they still weren't reaching their goals. So then they thought their training was bad. But it turns out they just didn't have what they needed to do their job. And that was all defining the problem. They thought the problem was lazy employees. Then it became all employees are lazy. Then it became our training's bad. And then it became what it actually was, which is they don't have enough resources to do the job, right? It's kind of like if I had to teach this class and I had no technology and the Wi-Fi spotty and whatever, and I get terrible evals, and students are angry, and it's like Professor Smart sucks. So I get fired, and they bring in a new professor, and they suck, and they go, oh, okay, well, we need to train the professors when they come in on how to use technology, and then they train them, and then they still fail because nothing works, right? That's literally what happened. And it turns out you just needed a stronger Wi-Fi signal.
You make really smart company right here.
It happens more often than you think, and a lot of times it's because of a disconnect between people making the decisions and the people in front of the problem.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like I'm right here watching this happen and I'm trying to say, hey boss, this is what's going on. And there's like a disconnect between they were like, well, I think you're just lazy. So I get to work and talk to a lot of fun companies.
Yep.
Anyway, so define the problem, generate alternative solutions. Hopefully these are proposed by multiple individuals. This is usually where we say, hey, think about everything. Right? Any solution is possible. Evaluate all of your alternatives, and then implement the alternative that you think is the best, and follow up on that solution. This is the standard analytical problem-solving model. This is what you will all do all the time, basically. Define the problem, think of all the solutions to it, evaluate the alternatives, and select one, and then implement it, and then follow up to make sure it does what you thought. So, for example, Toyota faced problems with inefficiency, waste, and production bottlenecks in the 1950s. Rather than relying on big one-time fixes, managers used a structured analytical methods to identify root causes. They used the Kaizen method, which stands for continuous improvement, essentially. It's a Japanese word. And what they do is employees at all levels basically make small, little incremental changes every day. One of the examples that I got was employees would reorganize tools on the assembly line to save a few seconds per task, but they make small, little changes every day, see if they work, see if they don't work. If they don't work, they go back to what they were doing. And Toyota literally just did this all the time, had managers just gave them freedom to make little tweaks as needed, moving brake times here and there, altering the order in which the vehicles were going to be put together. Anywhere they could cut and save and see if there was any effect, like, maybe we don't need this much of this product, we don't need this much glue or whatever to do these things. They make little changes, see if everything still works. They use systematic tools such as value stream mapping, which is essentially where you look at the start of the product and the end of the product, and you write a map of everywhere, like every step in creating this product, and you see if all those steps are necessary or where we can improve the process. And then they use the 5 whys approach. The 5 whys approach is if there's a problem, you say, why is this a problem? And then when you answer that, then you say, okay, why is it that? And then why is it that? And the belief was if you ask why 5 times, you'll be all the way down to like the niche of what's actually wrong. And then you can fix that. So essentially they did all these little things. The best way to summarize this is a ton of tiny analytical problem solving methods for every little thing wrong with the company, which is very interesting because their belief wasn't that there's a huge problem at the company. It was that they had basically got disorganized and they were inefficient. So they applied this over the course of several years, and through lean manufacturing and all these continuous little improvements, they drastically cut their costs while maintaining their performance. And it's one of the best cases of this being really successful. So yay, Toyota. There's actually a couple of things we talked about today that come from this, and that's why they're Japanese words. I was learning about the Japanese language recently because somebody my wife follows on TikTok or something. Crazy language. They have so many words that mean so many of the same things, and that is stressful to me. Granted, we're the same here in America, but I grew up that way, so it doesn't count. Oh, somebody didn't like that. How dare I bash the Japanese culture?
Oh yeah, their language is could be worse though. Could be Chinese.
I tried to learn Mandarin. I'm trying to learn Mandarin. It's impossible.
My best friend speaks it, and he's not a fan of it.
I wish I could. Plus, I think it looks weird when like a white bearded dude speaks Mandarin. Makes no sense. Trying though. This is a quote from the book. I love it. It's one of the few quotes in the book I really like. After we talk about analytical problem solving, on the other hand, simply learning about and practicing these 4 steps that define a problem, alternative solutions, all that stuff, does not guarantee that an individual will effectively solve all types of problems. These problem solving steps are more effective mainly when the problems faced are straightforward, alternatives are readily definable, when relevant information is available, and when a clear standard exists against which to judge the correctness of a solution. So basically saying the analytical problem solving approach is great, but it's only great in situations in which you operate with mostly full information, when you have readily available information, and when success is clear. Sometimes good and success is not, it's not like a sport where it's easy. You score more points than them, you win. Some things are more complicated. It's actually, I used to do more of a chess analogy here. I'll keep it quick on this one. This is so relevant in chess because people will always tell me, well, it wouldn't be a problem. If you're a really introspective student, you'll say it wouldn't be a problem unless you knew it was against your end goal. So that means all decisions have a solution or a good ending, right? So you do have something to evaluate success on. And I say, okay, you can think about chess. In chess, getting a checkmate is winning, right? We all know that that is the goal. Being really good at chess, like the grandmaster level, is realizing that in a position, it looks even or it looks like you're not doing anything wrong, but there are certain rules in chess and certain things that are long-term, like connecting your rooks or putting pieces in the center of the board that don't give you an immediate advantage. And it's hard to tell, is this the better solution? And when I play chess, I can't always tell, but a lot of grandmasters can just look at a board and be like, yes. And it just looks like any other jumble of pieces, right? So it's not clearly definable how it's the better position, but it ultimately could lead to that. So constraints on the analytical problem solving method. If there's a lack of consensus or uncertainty, like we discussed with the company that couldn't figure out why their employees were failing. Generating alternative solutions. Because of human nature, the majority of alternatives are missing. AI is actually helping with this, believe it or not. It's pretty good at that nowadays, generating lots of alternative solutions. However, AI's problem is it can't think truly creatively. It has to take inspiration from ideas that have been had in the past, basically. So, but it's really good at generating solutions. So you won't actually know all of the alternatives. You only know the ones that are clear to you and those working on the problem. Evaluate and select an alternative. This can be costly. People are biased. We tend to choose solutions that we've done in the past, or solutions that benefit us, or solutions that were our idea. That's pretty natural, right? If it's your idea, you're like, this idea is the best one. But truly evaluating an alternative is mostly costly in form of time and sometimes monetary as well. You don't have time to evaluate every single alternative for every single problem that came up. Otherwise, you would never eat, right? If you're trying to do all this for every decision you made. And then implementing and following up on the solution. Implementation is sometimes hard. People resist the change. Sometimes it takes a long time to implement. And there's, again, no clear definition of success. And also, if you are Toyota here and you are making tons of continuous little improvements every single day, at the end of the year when your company is more profitable, maybe some of those solutions were bad. Maybe they weren't, right? You don't know each decision that you made may have been good, may have been bad. You just know the collective whole at the end. Or sometimes they have long-term ramifications you don't know about.
Well, like not enough glue.
What's that?
Like not enough
Like
glue.
not enough glue, or it doesn't hold in the long run, or whatever, right? It ends up failing tests. I only remember the glue one because it was something like they would go excessive on it, or they would have excessive amounts to do certain things, and they would have to throw the rest out. And they were like, they can operate with less, but we've been so used to giving them more. I think that one actually ended up working out. So creative problem solving. I have the nice one up here, and then I'll tell you the not nice one. In the 1970s, a 3M chemist accidentally discovered a weak adhesive, which sounds counterintuitive. Some of you have probably heard this story. But at first, it seemed like a complete failure because adhesives are naturally strong. You need an adhesive to hold things together. Boom, right? For years, Silver pitched the failed glue, but never found a practical use. And then one day, a employee who was working in the church choir, or was part of the church choir, basically he was having trouble keeping notes and stuff on his little book that they use. They kept falling off. So he remembered Silver's weak adhesive, and thus the sticky note was born. And it turns out having a weak adhesive on a sticky note is great because it'll stay on things, but you can take it off without leaving a residue, and that ended up being one of 3M's biggest products. And it's because he failed using this glue, but they had the creative problem solving of, this failed, this is done. However, there was an alternative solution. If you want another fun example of this, oh my gosh, all the ones that are popping in my head aren't nice. Yeah, they're just, it's fine. It'll be okay. So there was a medicine developed at one point that was for high blood pressure, right? And then they actually, it was for hypertension, right? So they developed it for hypertension. It went through the whole process of being developed for hypertension, and then it failed those tests, but it had alternative side effects. And so what they did is they sent it back into testing and they repurposed it, and it became Viagra. Boom. And then, have you ever heard of Friend Finder? Friend Finder was a website created because somebody was like, Facebook's awesome, but it's so hard as an adult to meet people to be friends, right? It's so hard to grow out, meet other friends. So I'm going to create a website called Friend Finder that we're going to use to let people meet other people. Instead of Facebook, you pretty much only join with people you know in real life, right? And they created Friend Finder, but then after a year, they realized the website not only was not doing very well, but over 80% of the accounts on there were people looking for more than friends, right? So they were like, whoa, pivot. And they changed it to Adult Friend Finder and made millions. Yeah, there you go. So took a failed idea and then just spun it. What's so funny is I used to have a third one and I can't remember it. I guess my mind's in the gutter. But those are the two. Creative problem solving. So the book talks about 4 types of creativity. I put a little star on there because not this week, but next week, you do a creative problem solving assessment. Or so it like tells you like which of these categories you tend to fall into. However, most people can kind of use all. And I do have examples for these. So we have incubation, be sustainable, imagination, be new, improvement, be better, and investment, be first. Incubation is problem solving through teamwork. It's unlocking potential of a group by working together, encouraging working together, coming up with solutions, solving problems basically through group ideals. The study I read this morning, and if I had the site on top of my head, but I didn't put it in my notes, was that groups that have increased diversity, which we use a little scale to measure diversity and non-diversity, groups with increased diversity, primarily or socioeconomic background, so you come from different areas, have a 20% increase in quality idea generation. So they generate 20% more quality ideas. Quality ideas is really, really important because it's easy to generate a bunch of junk ideas. Then we have imagination. This is B new. This is someone that solves the problem creatively by coming up with something no one's ever heard before. It is completely innovative, completely new. Boom. A lot of people believe Steve Jobs, love him or hate him, was more of an imagination type of creative problem solver, but he wasn't. You just shook your head no. Looking at these, what do you think he was?
Be first.
Be first? That's actually pretty close. Some people argue be first as well. I argue be better, and we'll talk about it. And you just tell me if you agree or not.
It's okay. I'm allowing people to be wrong.
Thanks. So, brand new idea, breaking through. You're saying it probably, we'll get to be first, and I'll say why I think you said be first. Then we have improvement. This is kind of what Toyota was doing with little incremental improvements in the process. I tend to believe this is where Steve Jobs primarily fell. Again, you can fall in lots of these. One of my favorite stories about Steve Jobs, this came about, I think during my MBA right after he died. There was a case study on this, and it was about Steve Jobs, and the story was being told by one of his other billionaire friends. And one of his billionaire friends had built a private jet. So there's a company that'll build a jet, make everything about it what you want. And he said, Steve Jobs wanted to fly on my jet with me because he wanted his own jet from the same company. So we got on the jet and we flew and he checked the whole thing out. And he said, sure enough, a year later, he got his own jet from the same company and it was identical to my jet, but better in every single way. That's what he said. And they had done things such as when he was on his jet, there was a door that separated the rooms and it had an open button and it had a close button, right? So you press this button, it opens, you press this button and close. But Steve Jobs is like, that's dumb. The door's either open or closed. So it was only one button. It was a toggle. Press the button, the door closes. Then Steve Jobs noticed that in one of the rooms where they entertained people would tend to like drink scotch and stuff. But a natural cup holder, if you ever had a scotch glass, is wider at the bottom and it won't hold a scotch glass. So he had all the cups slightly widened by 1/4 of an inch, so a scotch glass would perfectly slot in there. So all these little things, like little changes throughout the jet to make it better, right? There was one thing about I think it was a chair that swiveled, and he was like, the chair's actually swiveled basically 360. And he's like, but there was never a reason to go past these certain areas. And it's actually you're in less control if the chair allows you to go farther than you want it to. So his chairs would lock and keep you from going swiveling too far one way or the other. All those little changes to the jet. That's the idea of like incremental improvements in a process to make sometimes even problems you don't know you have better, right? Now, investment. Be first. These tend to be people that put lots of money into things. Sometimes we say this is like throw money at the problem and solve it, but not always. People that will rapidly go for goal achievement, and then first movers, people that are trying to get there first. Steve Jobs did not invent the touchscreen phone, but he definitely made it mainstream. So I'm guessing your argument is he was the first one to all these markets to make these things.
Yeah.
Real big. Yeah. And there's an argument to be made for that. Some people would say, no, it was Samsung and then he just did it better. So maybe it was incremental or improvement, I mean.
It's the race over the first main seat Mac and PC, which was his major competitive nature with Microsoft. Like they were trying to, who could get it out first.
Mm-hmm.
Constant fighting over that one.
Are you an Apple user?
No.
Me neither. Oh, you're a gamer, so you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. You play video games, you don't use Mac. They just don't work. And Macs are great. They just aren't good for gaming. They're just not good for gaming. Yeah. This is a fun little chart that they have in the book for it. They also have another one that looks like this, and these are fine. I don't have a lot to say about these. They're just different ways to categorize it. Like, these incubation and imagination are very flexible. Improvement and investment are about having control. Investment's fast. It's all about being a first mover. Incubation is slow, right? And then you've got improvement, which is small little changes, and imagination, which is big, and it's just all these different ways to think about everything I just said. So let's look at a couple of examples quickly here. By the way, today I didn't tell you this. What we're going to do is I'm going to go through this lecture. It's actually a shorter lecture, I think. Then we're going to do the case study. I'll open it up in class, let everybody read it, do it in class, then we'll discuss the case study, and then we'll get out of here and we'll watch whoever's playing football tonight.
The Ravens.
Yeah, it's a good one. See, that would have been a great game, but the Lions haven't looked as good as I hope.
Well, the Lions better be good tonight.
Are you a
I'm
Detroit
a
fan?
Bengals fan.
You're a Bengals fan, so you need
So
them to
we
play.
don't need to even talk
Oh
about
my gosh, the Bengals! Oh no! So I do a pick'em with all. I got as many people as I can on this, and I sent it out. And it's like you had to basically choose the division winners, choose the conference winners, choose the Super Bowl, and rank all the teams on how they're going to finish, right? And I put the Bengals so high, and but there's no amendments. So just because Joe Burrow turf toe, that it was turf toe is not a joke. If you know what turf toe is, it's a real injury.
And it sounds like so puny.
Yeah. Oh, you watched the Travis Kelce podcast, don't you?
I saw a clip of it.
Yeah. Like the lady asked him what turf toe is. No, it's
And then
terrible.
when they described it, I was like, that sounds horrible.
No, I've
What
had
is
versions of
it?
it.
It's
What's
like
that?
where your ligament from your heel to your toe, like
Yeah.
basically just rips off.
Well, it can be injured or rip off.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he has a grade 3 one, so
Yes,
it
that means he doesn't have a tendon. So the tendon from your toe to your heel, anybody in the comments here, sorry, that knows this better than me, from your toe to your heel is gone. I've injured mine from running, and when you walk, you push off your big toe a lot. If you've ever injured your big toe, which I broke mine multiple times, walking is so
It's
hard.
so hard.
Yeah, and so turf toe, and the
You don't
reason they call
realize how much you use your big toe or
And
how useful it is.
they call it turf toe because cleats stick to turf, and people get injured from their foot sticking and then trying to move, and then it rips that tendon. And yeah, so Joe Burrow's out. The moral of the story and the point of today's lecture is Joe Burrow's out. The Bengals are there. But anyway,
Weird. Just maybe not this
Is
week.
this college or like?
NFL.
NFL talk. Yeah, we got time. So anyway, where was I here? Incubation. Perfect. So now we're going to go through some examples of each of these: incubation, imagination, improvement, and investment. Incubation, Google's 20% time. I don't know how much they adhere to this anymore. Over the last 2 years, this example has died a little bit because Google has made some shifts. But what's up?
Here's a really good example. This Valve.
Valve?
Is that the owners of
Yeah,
Steam?
owners of Steam.
They have they don't get they have people on maintenance and stuff, but all their programmers and developers, free list. You have 100% of the day to choose what you do.
Oh, that's cool.
But so they can do projects, look at these projects, start developing them, and then just drop them midway
Yeah.
and start doing it into something else.
Probably because, like Google, everybody wants to work for Valve.
Yep. Plus they have an unlimited money stream from Steam.
Oh, yeah. Print money.
Yeah.
Valve is. Yeah. So Google had 20% time. Google basically gave employees 20% of their work week to pursue personal projects unrelated to their main role. The original purpose of this was kind of a mixed bag. It was this idea that employees would pursue creative passions which would ultimately benefit the organization. That was one. And two is employees appreciate it so much and it prevents burnout. And you spend a fifth of your week doing something completely you enjoy or want to do, then it's, beneficial overall. So many ideas from this downtime failed, obviously, but Google was very open about that's okay. Google's a very fail-friendly place. But things such as Gmail, Google Maps, and AdSense became industry-changing products and came about from employees developing them during their 20% downtime.
Well, those employees got some payback from that. Those are billion
Yeah, Gmail was the big one. Gmail came out when this Google's 20% time first got really popular. It was because Gmail came from it, and now Gmail's what I use, what the university uses, all that stuff.
Okay.
Again, I don't know how much Google does this anymore. They pulled back a little bit on their employee stuff since COVID because they were losing a little bit of money, and they made some adjustments. I don't know how they rank on best places to work, but they used to basically hold that exclusively on their own. If anybody wants to look it up, you can let me know. I would actually love if somebody did look it up and let me know how Google ranks among best places to work, because they used to own that category. They were number one all the time. Oh, did I get this still on the slide? I did. Okay. Investment. Tesla's first mover push into EVs. If I recall correctly, Tesla is definitely not the first EV. However, I can at least say from someone like myself who's not a big car person, they were the first one I knew. Like, well. And I actually used to say all the time when I was dating my wife during my PhD that when I graduate from my PhD, the first thing I want to do is I want to buy a really expensive Tesla. That was like what I wanted to do. And I was determined for 6 years to do that. And then at the end of my PhD, I was like, I got kids. I got to spend money somewhere else. What's up?
They're not even in the top 5.
They're not even in the top 5.
It's Brian and company, NVIDIA, ServiceNow,
NVIDIA.
MathWorks, and Procore Technologies. These are by employee satisfaction. So
There you go. If you want,
Amazon beats some companies.
Amazon's trying nowadays. If I could say one caveat here, now we're talking about this is managerial theory. It's just not directly applicable here. If you offer something to somebody, this is the best example. If I tell you, I'm going to pay you $120,000 for this job, and you start the job, and then a month in I say, I was mistaken, I'm going to pay you $110,000 for this job, your satisfaction drastically drops. If that same employee you told at the very beginning, I'll pay you $100,000 for this job, and then you keep paying them $100,000, and then you raise it to 105, right? Their satisfaction is very, very high. This idea that people have expectations, and when they're taken away, it drastically harms employees' morale. So this idea that for employees, you can always give, but taking away is usually bad. So you can always improve, but you can't detract. That's why it's very acceptable to promote people, and firing people is one thing. But if you ever take an HR class from me, we're very anti-demoting people. Demoting someone is just drastically bad for everybody. Their satisfaction plummets, the satisfaction of everybody around them plummets. It's not good. So you can't take it away. What's up?
But in Forbes list, they're
Yeah.
number 2 behind Microsoft.
I can't believe Microsoft's number 1, but I'm a Microsoft fan. But I believe you. I'm just saying. It's shocking. Wow. So there you go. But I know that they made a shift. Anyway, investment. Tesla didn't invent the electric car, but his strategy, basically what Tesla was trying to do, and this is the big one, is electric cars had been viewed as slow, economically friendly, very, very expensive. But they were seen as like a very tree hugger thing, not cool, not slick, whatever. And Elon's big thing, if you've ever, Tesla at the beginning, before it became all controversial, at the beginning, one of their big selling points that made them kind of shocking was they would emphasize how fast they were. They were quick. They weren't like most EVs. I had actually drove a hybrid Honda during my undergrad, and I remember one of the things about it used to drive me crazy was so slow. It was half electric, half gas, and when you'd get on the highway, you would punch it and just pray that you could get to speed before people hit you, right, and caught up. And then Tesla, their whole thing was like, look how quick this is. They were setting records and being really, really slick and cool, and that was their idea. So they threw a bunch of money at this, rushed to the front, tried to create this big brand, and then boom, it became what they are. Now I can go into a deep dive about Tesla's stock valuation. It's like, are they evaluated too much? Are they not evaluated enough?
Too much.
They're evaluated way too much. However, there's two sides to this coin if you want to know about Tesla. My undergrad is in economics. They're valued too high for what they are, but you'll hear all these news reports about like Tesla stock and Tesla, the company's plummeting, and that's not true. They're doing well. Their stock's overvalued. Those are different things. The company is performing, and but their valuation is way too high.
I heard one saying that like 2/3 of their stock value is just because of Elon.
It's completely that. They're just famous. They make money off the fact that they're so famous. People that don't know a lot about the stock market download Robinhood and they buy Tesla stock because they know it. Just like people buy Apple the same way. The good thing is Apple kind of rolls with it. It works out well for them. Improvement examples. McDonald's drive-thrus. McDonald's realized customers' wait times were creeping up. They've gotten ridiculous at some points. I sit in the driveway. I hate McDonald's with a fiery passion, but I have kids, so I've never eaten a McDonald's hamburger in my life, and I never will. Don't hand to the God to me.
How are you going to hate something if you've never had?
I don't like their fries. I don't like any. And I'm also kind of health conscious, and I can read nutrition facts.
The chemicals are good for you.
That's debatable. But my son likes them occasionally, and he's fit, so whatever. But the wait times are creeping up. I've waited in those lines for 45 minutes before. Instead of reinventing the fast food model, which is actually funny because McDonald's used to be lightning quick, right? They were the first ones. They use incremental improvements, kind of like Toyota. They created the double drive-through lanes. They changed little things about the kitchen layout. They studied order patterns, which was they would see when things were ordered most commonly at your area and start pre-prepping those foods, right? So that they would be like, okay, we tend to get a rush right here. People tend to order this. We're going to have that ready ahead of time. All they did was take what they already had and make little changes to make it better. They decreased drive-through times. Another way to look at this, these are all small snapshots of bigger cases. Another way to look at this is they returned closer to their roots because original McDonald's, this is one of the things they prided themselves on, was they were super, super fast. You actually couldn't eat inside. They developed all these systems to make the kitchen super streamlined, really, really quick. There's a whole movie about it that does a fantastic job. You don't like the movie?
They talk about the movie acts like this was their only establishment by the original creators, but they were already in 2 different cities by the time you ran into them.
Yeah, they're very successful.
But in the movie, it plays off like they were just a small place in the middle of nowhere.
They also play off in the movie. They play it off like he super screwed over the McDonald's brothers. It wasn't as bad as the movie plays it off to be. Yeah, but it wasn't good.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a story for another time. And let's go to imagination. We got to talk about Apple. iPhones launched in 2007. Until I reviewed this case today, I forgot it was 2007. Makes me feel old as hell. That is a long time ago. That's crazy. I feel like phones haven't really changed a lot since then either. They're just a little bit better every day or every year. Apple didn't just improve an existing phone or rush to be the first. They imagined a radically new category, sort of. Early smartphones like the BlackBerry, I had a BlackBerry originally, it's pretty cool. Nokia, Palm Pilot, which I completely forgot about until this case study, were cluttered with buttons and had limited functionality. Customers wanted convenience, but the solutions felt clunky. So they essentially reimagined this thing. They added stuff like, it was basically an iPod that became an iPhone. So it had the music functionality. They weren't the first touchscreen. Samsung was. But I had a friend that had one of the original touchscreen Samsungs and one of the original iPhones, and I will say, touching the original touchscreen Samsung felt awful. It was slow, it was clunky, it didn't feel good, and the iPhone came out and just felt amazing. They basically were like, you don't need buttons, I can make something better than buttons. Because when I had the first touchscreen BlackBerry, I remember thinking, I just wish I had buttons. It would be so much easier to use, because this is so annoying. And now modern phones have crushed that, right? The touchscreen iPhone is, so much better. My kids have never known a phone that had buttons, which is wild. I got really annoyed when I got this phone, though, because it doesn't have a button at the bottom that's the home screen. Like, my old one had an actual button that you would press, and it would take you home, and I loved it.
How long have you had that phone?
This phone, I got it when I was 30, for my 30th birthday, so almost 5 years ago, this exact phone, and the phone before that I had for 8 years.
Hey.
I don't switch phones.
Oh.
And I only switched from my 8th to my 5th, or I only switched from the phone that I had for 8 years to this one because I went in and they were like, your next phone's free. And I was like, all right. So they gave me, this phone cost me no dollars. So it's a Samsung Galaxy 20 something, I don't know, or 19, I don't know. I don't use my phone for much anymore. All right. Boom. Now we're going to go to something more fun for me. If you've seen this puzzle before, hush. If you haven't, great. The 9-dot puzzle, there's a point to this, I promise, is a mathematical puzzle whose task is to connect 9 squarely arranged points with a pen by 4 or fewer straight lines without lifting the pen. So basically, you have these 9 dots, and you have to draw with 4 lines without lifting your pen, touching all the dots, okay? You're welcome to do it in your head or on a piece of paper or whatever, but don't worry, we're going to talk about it. This is a famous puzzle. There are many consultants that use it for CEOs during training. I have seen this multiple times in my life. Have you ever seen this before? You know the solution.
Yeah, that's so. Yeah.
You think so? Okay. I will give you just a second here. By the way, I took out the solution slide, so go to hell. Take that. It was in my deck, and then I forgot to send my own deck to myself, which only has one extra slide since it's a solution slide, but I know the solution, so it's fine. So a lot of people will go, all right, I draw there, there's one line, there's two lines, there's three lines, but then the problem is always right here, is your fourth line, right? Because it has to be a straight line and everything has to connect.
So it has to be a straight line?
All the lines have to be straight. Every line has to be straight. You can only draw 4. You can't lift your pen. And you've got to touch all the dots. Now, what I'll do real quick, because I used to have a slide. What's up?
Oh.
You have a solution?
Mhm.
You do? What's the solution? Sorry, did I catch you mid-bite?
No, but I had to do this for another course.
Oh, so you know it? I can draw. I'll show you guys a picture. It's easier than drawing it. Check this out. Surely there's just a picture of it online, so I don't have to draw it. I'll make it easier. Essentially, the point of this is, these are the instructions, right? Human instinct is to fill in gaps of information. Human nature is to go off past experiences, a puzzle you've done in the past, instructions you've been given in the past. Human nature is bound to our own rational solutions, what we believe is the rational solutions. And success often comes from unbounding this rationality and thinking more creatively or literally outside the box. So the actual way to solve this is to, and I'll show you the picture, is to draw your first line, not to here, but to all the way out here. Then to come across all the way down. Then I believe it's up. Oh wait, no, it's here. Okay, that's what it is. Here, out to here, across, all the way to the top, and then diagonally. And I'll show you a picture. I had one, but I'll make it easier for everybody. It looks like that. Oh, this is a safe website. We're just clicking around, team. There we go. So you start here, go all the way across outside the box, angle through, up, and then down. And that touches all of them with 4 straight lines without ever lifting up your pen. However, when you give this to people for the first time, the immediate reaction is to assume that you can't draw lines outside this box. The instructions clearly never say that. That is why there's a good science behind actually doing puzzles and doing riddles and stuff are really, really good for your brain, because we've all done riddles and there's, you know, when you do a riddle, there's an expectation that whatever the words are not what the words are. They're always not what they appear to be. And there's more to be said about that when it comes to problem solving. Ooh, glad that worked out. My website wasn't something crazy.
Can't believe you got fired because you put viruses on your computer.
One time I was in a department meeting and they were covering predatory journals, which are journals that are not good journals. They're journals that are just there to steal people's money. And they gave us all a list of predatory journals. And I was scrolling through the list on my phone and they all had links. And I just randomly clicked one and it was bad. It was a hyperlink to a different website.
Why would
I don't know why I clicked it, but I was in the middle of like,
why would they put the
all,
links
I
on there?
don't know.
Like, that's the
Like, don't press this button
Well,
right
most of
here.
the links go to a website because they're trying to get you to submit your journal, your paper there.
right.
What a predatory journal does is you submit your paper there and you pay them money to publish it, but it's not credible. They just take your money.
That's an ingenious idea.
It works. People make a lot of money doing it, but it doesn't count for its tenure, so I don't, you know. But we use the 9-dot puzzle because it tells us that essentially when you see a problem, we'll talk about frameworks later when we talk about decision making, not today, but in the future. You have an established framework for problems and you operate within it. When you see that picture, human nature is to think, I've done a million puzzles before, I've been asked questions like this before, all this stuff, you can't draw outside of it. You don't even think it consciously, you just draw within the box. And that's how solving problems are. It was like the Tesla and the EVs. The original idea was, well, EVs gas, if we throw a lot of energy and power at something and make a big explosion, the car will move quick and be loud. But that's not very energy efficient. And if we're going to be energy efficient, not quick, not loud, energy efficient, right? And Elon Musk, when he set out, as an engineer, the idea was, I want to develop a car that is both, because electricity should be able to do this if we develop it right. It's like a touchscreen shouldn't be as good as buttons, but if I make a touchscreen so good, it probably is better than buttons. Why does a touchscreen not feel as good as a button? I mean, when you touch a phone now, it almost feels like it's pressing the button. So it gives you that little vibration feedback, It feels good, yeah.
And there's some keyboards on some websites will even have the old fashioned click clack when you're hitting the keyboards. Even though they're smooth sound, you're hearing it through the headset.
What?
Some websites will actually, when you're typing on the keyboard, they will make the sound for your keyboard.
It's great.
Just so you feel like you're typing.
Feel like I'm clicking.
Yeah.
And this leads us to conceptual blocks. What time is it? Oh my gosh, too long. We're going to pause. We're going to do conceptual blocks when I get back, and we're basically done with the lecture. Conceptual blocks, case study, Detroit beating the Ravens. They're going to get smoked. The Ravens are so good. Oh, we're not gone, Pete, but it is 6:30. I will come back at 6:35. I'm going to make sure my water's topped off, and we'll rock. Heard that. Now it's on. I said nothing before the recorder turned on. So, to quickly review, constancy, the conceptual block that occurs because you're doing things the same way and you won't change. You've been doing it forever this way. Complacency at the very bottom, similar, but it's people that are not changing, not implementing problem solutions because they're happy with where they are. And then commitment, not getting people to buy into whatever your problem solving is, whatever solution you're trying to come up with, and so you can't do it. And then you have compression. This is more like constraints. This is you cannot implement the solution because you have resource constraints, financial constraints, time constraints. Whatever it is that limits your ability to actually implement the solution. So those are the common conceptual blocks that prevent creative thinking, prevent creative problem solving. So for constancy, one way we say to deal with this is through what we call vertical thinking, and then think about the idea that we have a single thinking language. So this is what people do, and this is why constancy is a problem. It's something you have to work to fix. I'll talk about it in the terms of the one language, because I think that one's really interesting. We have thinking languages, not like actual languages, but the ways we think about things. So my background is economics and then organizational behavior. Those are, even though I teach a lot of psychology things, I'm not very soft science at all. I'm very by the numbers. Now that can be bad because sometimes that leads to lack of empathy because I'm looking at just the numbers of organizations and solutions in that way. But every single problem that comes up in my life, or anytime I hear about a problem at a company or anything like that, the way I think about problems and organizations and even things that come up with my kids not getting ready for school on time, all comes down to numbers, solution-driven, trying to get resources and everything lined up to be super efficient. That's what the economic background of my mind says. It is we have to be efficient. When I keep track of our house's finances, and when our coffee bill was too high, my wife was getting Starbucks a lot, and then she was using K-Pods, which she would drink at the house. And I immediately was okay, the cost of a K-Pod per pod use is $1.50. But if we get these reusable ones, they're $5 plus the filter, plus the coffee. It comes down to 20 cents per cup. We'll save this much per month, right? And that's my immediate thought on how to this problem solve. My wife's thought is, the full extent is, am I willing to spend a little bit more money for convenience and because it feels good? Yes. That's the thought, right? Simple, easy. So it's all down to your thinking language. Some people that are more creative than me, when I see something, when I buy a car, I care about efficiency. When they see a car, they care about style, appearance. when they're trying to fix something in a company, they care about optics. I care about bottom line. I don't think about the optics of it at all. I don't even understand why people care, right? Like, that's my thought. Yeah, it's hard. I don't know why your phone needs to be any color but black. It makes no sense to me. And that sounds dumb. I really don't get it. I don't have the heart to understand why would you sell a pink iPhone? If they want a pink phone, they'll just put a pink case on it. That makes no sense to me. Why would they do that? So different thinking languages. So we also define this as vertical thinking, which is thinking about the same or one problem in the same way. This is how constancy comes about. It's because you have people making decisions that don't have anybody else in their ear, and they are everything they are doing, they are thinking about in the same way, and so it's hard for them to think about things differently. Your allergies are getting you, aren't you? I keep
I'm
hitting that.
actually sick.
Oh,
That's why.
thanks, team.
Get it sick.
But I'm gonna be missing couple classes, so I was like,
What kind of sick?
like probably a cold.
Careful.
It's just because it's like the sun is setting. That's whenever you feel the worst.
Everybody in my chat's like so glad I don't come to class now. This is exactly why.
I'm like 6 feet away from everyone. It's fine.
Yeah, you're COVID safe.
Yeah.
You're like leaning this thing. You can move. You're not gonna hurt my feelings. You might hurt hers.
Dedicated.
I was talking to him. So conceptual blocks for commitment. Getting employees to buy into new ideas. Sometimes it can be because they don't see the long-term solution or it's going to hurt them. Another one we talk about is only using the past. A lot of times employees view problems and view solutions exclusively through past ideals. This is similar to like what you would see with the last one, which is in the past, this didn't work. Or in the past, problems were like this. And now it's hard to get employees to see that it's different. You see this a lot with new management. Manager's there, he offers a new solution, he's like, we should do X and this will be good. And every decision he's ever come up with has been bad. And it's harmed the employees. Manager's fired, new manager comes in, all the ideas they come up with are immediately hesitant by the employees because they've been burned in the past. And they're like, I don't trust this. We're gonna get through this quickly here. Compression. This can come about from looking too narrowly at a problem as well, not looking at all the data. Sometimes the financial constraints and the constraints that exist from resources and stuff are because we're putting artificial constraints on ourselves and we're thinking some solutions are off limits. This comes about a lot when we're talking about cost. Jimmy Donaldson, Mr. Beast, love him or hate him. One thing he's actually pretty good about is even though he spends lots of money, he spends all of his money. And the reason a case study on him is going to be really interesting when they're finished is because early on he was operating under razor thin margins and was doing big productions with honestly low cost. And a lot of the ways he was able to do this was because he is super good at thinking no solution is off limits, making deals, making whatever. One of his famous first ones, his very first viral video was he got a sponsorship for $5,000 to make a video for the company. And they were like, we're going to give you $5,000. You make a video and we'll sponsor you. And his thought was, how do I make a viral video? I need more money. I'm going to say, if you give me $10,000, I will give it all away to a homeless person. And I promise that video will be successful. And he got more money. They gave him $10,000. He gave it away, millions of views, which is a big deal back then. And exploded, and that's pretty much what he's done forever. But he's really good at making really, really high production things by reducing or by finding solutions that basically, the other one's an island, is an island one. He comes up with solutions that save him money that normally he wouldn't have the resources for. Giving away an island sounds really, really cool, right? It's cool to give away an island. That looks good in a video. He was saying that buying nice islands are like $8 to $10 million. They're way too expensive. But he found out he could buy a $2 million trashy island, and with $2 million of fixing it up, it would look nice enough for camera. And then you could see it's $4 million, and it saves the money. And now he already has all the supplies and the relationships that he can do that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And this is a creative solution that he came up with that gets through this conceptual block of these financial and resource constraints. Whereas a lot of people would say, can we give away an island? No, the cheapest island I can find that we can actually have a competition on is going to be $8 million and it's outside our budget. So, next. The hell would I do with an island? So hard to get there. You know what he does with all those things? Do you know what he does?
Sells them.
Yeah, they offer them. He said this multiple times. If someone wins a jet or wins an island, they offer them the thing or to buy it from them for market value, and his team will sell it.
But like, who's buying an island?
Rich people.
Like, for
I'd like to remind you of the great country of Dubai where they spend money on dumb stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Have you seen their new construction project?
No.
Their massive bird they're building. It's meant to be like two pretty decent sized cities, just this massive bird, all these little islands. It is sinking 75 times faster than Venice is.
Wow.
They have to keep pouring sand in, which they have to import because the sand that next to their shores are not good for like ocean sand. They have to import it from all over the world to have it sink into the
That's
ocean.
like the opposite of a compression conceptual block. They're just like, do it.
Yeah, they've already,
Yeah.
they're already filled with the world, and now they're like, we're gonna try this now.
So last one, complacency. Which you remember complacency is we're happy with where we are, we're gonna stay here, right? We're gonna keep going. Sometimes we attribute this to poor thinking habits. It's actually a rule in business that if you're not growing, you're dying. Thinking that your success now will maintain forever, a la Blockbuster. And then sometimes we even say it's a bias against thinking, against coming up with new ideas, against being creative, against, solving problems that you don't think are problems yet. Complacency. There's only one company in the world that should be complacent. You know who it is? Oreo. That's my belief. It's Oreo.
I've seen the video.
You see that? Yeah, I've seen the CEO video. It's
Yeah.
Oreo. Yeah, it's Oreo. Everybody knows Oreo.
Retired. You don't need to be working.
You don't need to be working. Yeah, everybody knows Oreos. They're on every cookie shelf. They're the number one selling cookie in the world. They're on every cookie shelf. Everybody knows what they are. Everybody's eaten an Oreo or had an Oreo, and all the extra flavors sell worse than the original Oreo. They could just make Oreo and never run out of money. People have duplicated Oreos, and it doesn't matter. So they literally could do nothing but Oreo and live forever.
It's an entire aisle of different Oreo flavors that wouldn't come.
Which is dumb.
Why?
Who cares?
Exactly.
Yeah. Sorry. Getting heated. All right. We're going to go over here to brainstorming challenges. Actually, we'll talk about brainstorming or generating alternatives, just brainstorming, and then we'll go to that. And then we're done. So last thing I want to end with is things that you can all actually use a little bit more as managers. I told you at the beginning when we were talking about, problems and managers and when to break the rules and when to not. And the problem with teaching stuff like this is it's hard to say, like, definitively, this is what you can do. All I can say is, here are the concepts, here's what other companies have done, and use that to help guide your decisions. But there's a couple of things I can talk about. One is generating alternatives. We said earlier that it's impossible to come up with every alternative, and that is true. Like I said, AI is getting better at it. There was a pretty cool study where they took entrepreneurship PhDs and they told them to write 100 creative business ideas. They found that if you have somebody write 100 creative business ideas, most of them could do it in about a week, and about 5 of them would be deemed by experts to be credible. AI could write 100 in basically a few minutes or less, and they would say that about 70 to 80% of them are credible. Right, so AI is pretty good at coming up with ideas, but again, AI is limited into what has already been done, essentially. But it's good for things like brainstorming and coming up with alternatives. So for brainstorming, first, defer your judgment. Do not evaluate the alternatives. Every idea is okay. Come up with as many alternatives as you can, not because the alternatives are necessarily good, but because they can lead to good ideas. Wild ideas are encouraged. Quantity before quality, and you can use other people's ideas to build onto yours. You have to definitely have a team and a safe space where people are okay with this. I have worked on a few research teams this is a professor problem. They are quick to tell you are dumb if you come up with an idea for a research project that they don't think works. And that makes you not want to talk.
No, not stoppy professors.
Yeah, pretty bad. Expand current alternatives. Every alternative doesn't have to be completely separate from all the others. Take alternatives you already have, divide them into smaller parts, expand upon them. And then you can do what's called combining unrelated attributes. Take multiple alternatives, put them together to create different solutions. So one thing they do, or that we've done before and we'll do with managers, we say employee turnover in a retail company is 25% higher than the industry average. That's our problem. Step one, generate 5 wild solutions with no judgment. Offer free vacation to employees who stay 2+ years. Replace managers with AI coaches. Create a loyalty program for employees. Let employees design their own work schedules entirely. Gamify work with levels, points, and prizes like an RPG. Those all seem a little too much or a little too wild, but it's okay. Just whatever. This is how I actually come up with research ideas. I just think about crazy things, whether they've been done before or not done before. That's like the Discord study I'm doing right now is using Discord, and I'm like, Discord's cool. I like Discord. I'm going to write about Discord. Got to be honest, all the stuff that happened politically the last couple of weeks may put a damper on my Discord paper. I'm dead serious. Journals do not like it. If it's in the news negatively, they don't want to publish on it. So I'm going to have to sell on the paper for a year until it calms down. Then publish it. But yeah, that's real though. So
Hopefully they don't worry about the Discord cults.
yeah, it's a whole thing. I get it. But most likely someone will review my paper that knows nothing about Discord, so I'll spin it positively. It'll be great. Trust me. So come up with 5 wild solutions, then redefine them into realistic alternatives they can use. Instead of vacations, offered tiered retention bonuses or career development stipends. Use AI tools to support managers with feedback and coaching insight, not replace them. Build an employee recognition and reward system that tracks tenure and contributions. Adopt more flexible scheduling. Introduce gamified recognition, badges, leaderboards to boost morale and engagement. There's actually a third step to this that I would put into this because it would require, I would have to pick one and really expand it. But step 1 is your wild solution. Step 2 is redefining them into realistic alternatives that you can read and say, we could do that. And then step 3 would be details. It would be saying, what AI tools would we use to support managers? What support would they need? What would that look like specifically? And you have to be specific. And then lastly, we're going to talk about the manager toolkit. Just a few things here to help implement problem-solving techniques. And then we're done. We already talked about the 5 whys, saying, why is this the problem? And when they say why, say, okay, why is it that? Why is that a problem? Okay, why is that a problem? Okay, why is that a problem? The hope being you get to the crux of what the issue is, solve it. Then you have a fishbone diagram. Do you know what a fishbone diagram is? You do? Yes. That's so rare. You know what a fishbone diagram is? No? Fishbone diagram? No? Look at you. Where'd you learn about a fishbone diagram?
Dr. Black.
Dr. Black! Janice Black?
That's fine.
Yeah! Well, I'm not going to say it as cool as her. She's smart. But I'll try. A fishbone diagram, and I can pull a picture up of one if you want, is you take whatever the problem is and you put it at the head. Here, this is my problem. Then the bones of the fish, the reason it's called a fishbone diagram is because you have a head and then you have a line and then the ribs of the fish coming out. And the ribs of the fish are basically all the things that are contributing to the problem, right? I'm going to pull a better one up here. I don't think I put one in here. I got this. We already looked. We're going to take another chance again. I need a business example. I actually saw one earlier that I thought about mimicking myself, so maybe I'll find that one. Oh yeah, this one will work fine. Get to site business map. That can't be dangerous, right? Oh, this doesn't feel good now. Okay, there we go. This one's bad too. Okay, it doesn't matter. So, an example could be, I'm not going to look up another one. I can just do it off my dome because I'm smart. But not as smart as Dr. Black. What class do you take from Dr. Black?
Work with classes, management and supervision.
Okay, she's great. I used to teach that class. She's fantastic. I'm working on a paper with her. So, fishbone diagram would say, we have employee turnover problems. People are leaving the organization at a high rate. And then we branch it out and we say, okay, what are the reasons? And one could be rough working conditions. So that's one of the ribs of the fish. And the rib, that would say it's hot, long hours. They start super early. It's a long commute because of where where the company's located. Those are all working conditions. And then we would say it's benefits of working here, like compensation. They're like, okay, the pay's a little bit low. They don't get a lot of time off. We don't have very good like health options and stuff like that. That's all part of that. So you break it out so you have your problem and then every single thing that's contributing to the problem. And the point is, it's difficult to solve the problem, employee turnover, because it's a lot of things that lead to it. And the fishbone diagram lets you see every single thing that turns or that leads to employee turnover, and then all the parts that break up that. And that's easier to digest and fix. If employees are leaving, and one of the reasons is employee benefits, right? They're not getting enough money, they're not getting this. Okay, well, we can't pay them more money, but I can offer more flexible hours. And we weren't offering good health insurance, but maybe we need to switch providers or allow employees to choose which provider they get. So like here at MSU, I have a health insurance plan that's completely covered. If I decide to put nothing into it, they pay for all my health insurance. Or I have options of better health insurance for small costs on my side. I pay a little bit more and I get better health insurance. So maybe we offer that flexibility. And that may help to reduce employee turnover. So you're trying to take the one problem and break it out to a whole bunch of other ones. Also, I put a bunch of these examples in the, I believe in my notes. So if you have my slides, you can look at the notes and there's good stuff in there, probably. Allegedly. A Pareto analysis is simply based on the idea that 80% of your problems are caused by 20% of the things. So like 80% of all of your issues are really just coming from 20% of causes. So what we tell managers is, if you have like turnover, the employee turnover problem, the majority of employee turnover is probably caused by a few things, not all of the fishbone diagrams. So part of your job is to figure out which of those things are the problem, are the biggest contributor to the problem, and then fix those. Dude, I'm so dehydrated today. I don't drink until I start teaching, I swear. Not drink. This is water.
I think someone's gone off to report you, it looks like.
It's
drinking and cleanse.
I don't even drink caffeine anymore, man.
Who hurt you?
Yeah, we talked about this. My health. Then some creative boosters. I'm going to go through these last two quickly because I want to get through I want to get to the case study so we can get out of here. Scampers, which is fun to say. Scamper stands for, make sure, substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, and reverse. This is just ways to come up with creative solutions. The example that I put in my notes was for fast food. I think originally it was based on McDonald's, actually, because, gotta have two McDonald's examples. So McDonald's trying to improve sales, increase their customer base. For substitute, they started offering veggie patties instead of meat. Gross. Yeah, I know. But Buffalo Wild Wings used to offer a black bean patty, and it was pretty tasty. The only thing I'll say.
Yeah, but McDonald's.
McDonald's, yeah, I know.
And I'm not a McDonald's hater, but
Combined, they had good breakfast sales, good sales the rest of the day. They started offering the combined menu, which actually ended up not working very well. They had issues with that.
Works really well at Jack in the Box, apparently.
Yeah, right.
Ugh.
Adapt. They were offering coffee. However, to compete with Starbucks and other companies, they wanted to be more of a one-stop. So they started adapting their coffee service to start selling coffee-style lattes, which are actually okay if you just want sugar, but pretty good. Modify. They took supersize. That used to not be a thing at McDonald's, right? That was modifying existing products they had to say, okay, modifying usually comes in the idea of we're going to increase, decrease cost, or increase, decrease size, stuff like that. So they increased the size. They also started making like kitty sizes of things. Put to another use, they started using, they had a mobile app where you could order ahead. They started saying, okay, we're going to allow people to pick up not just through the drive-through, but we're also going to allow people to pick up inside. We're also going to partner with DoorDash. They were one of the first partners with DoorDash to get delivery drivers from McDonald's, all sorts of stuff like that. eliminate. Some McDonald's actually eliminated inside dining, right? And they've eliminated some things on the menu in order to save on cost within the kitchen. That's also originally why they separated breakfast and everything, because it was costly to run both at the same time. And then reverse, which also goes back to the breakfast thing. Instead of take ideas that they had before and get rid of them. We'll serve breakfast all day long. They used to close at a certain time. We're going to be open 24 hours. They leave the dining room open longer, but they leave the drive-thru open all the time. Things like that. And then implementation tips. When you actually implement your problem-solving ideas, pilot testing is important. So if it's a big change, making the change in a small environment and seeing what happens. Feedback loops, always allow your employees to give you as much feedback as possible on everything. We talked about at the beginning, I think me and you discussed how a lot of times ideas, it's because someone's close to the problem and the person making the decision is way over here. And that's why feedback loops are so important. Have quick wins, so when you do make changes, make sure that the wins are celebrated and that you point them out quickly. And role assignments. When you do make changes or you're solving problems, make sure everybody has a assigned role in the solution. And I have talked way too long, which is crazy. This class is supposed to go to 8:15. There's no way in hell. People that do that are crazy. I have taught night classes since I became a professor, and every professor I know that was beloved and did well never went the full 3 hours. It's crazy. It's way too long. Anyway. All right, we're going to talk about the case study real quick, and then we're done. And well, and I got to give you a lecture question. Cool. But we still do have time, so we're going to talk about the case study. I'm going to give everybody in class 5 to 10 minutes to look at the case study and start coming up with some solutions. Then what we're going to do is I'm going to discuss the case study, give you your lecture question, and we're going to get out of here. The case study is due Sunday at 11:59, so make sure you get it done. You also have the homework for chapter 3 that's going to be due this Sunday. And then we have the lecture question, obviously, but that's it. So if you do the case study right now, you basically just have to do your homework because you're going to do the lecture question in just a second as well. So the case study for this week, it actually refers more to what we were talking about last week. I just didn't want to do a case study and an assessment the same week. It is called The Case of the Missing Time. I was able to find the case study for free online from an older version of the textbook, which is now public access. So I posted it. Take that. Copyright.
Think got food now.
Don't think so. This version's public for use. Not, I'll take it down.
Yes, please.
What's up?
Please.
Do it. I'll be like, I don't care. This is the case that I discussed last week about someone essentially having goals that they set out at the beginning of the day to complete and then getting completely off kilter and not doing them. At the bottom of this case study, there are 4 questions to answer. We are not doing question 1 because I don't like it. So you are doing question 2, 3, and 4. So please, for the next 5-10 minutes, give the case study a quick read. I'm going to reread it one more time. I read it before class, but I was going to reread it. And then we are going to discuss it. I'm going to give you your lecture question, and we're going to get out of here. For those of you watching the recording, I'm actually going to stop the recorder until basically we do the lecture question, and then boom. Now that I've remembered to turn the recorder on, without any prompting from anybody in the audience, the lecture question for this week, very simply is, what is your favorite horror movie? And if you don't like horror, you can just tell me your favorite movie. This is important because I love horror and I have seen it all. And I pour through student recommendations every year, and I usually find 2 or 3 I haven't found, and I watched them. Last year, a student told me to watch Terrifier, and I have never seen it.
Oh my god.
Dude, that student
Overrated.
So me and my sister and some of her friends all went to go watch it. Never heard anything about it before. In the first 5 minutes, I was like, "What am I watching? What am I watching?
It's just gore porn.
Oh my yeah,
That's pretty bad.
it's bad.
It's not
The
good. It's just
new one that just came out was crazy, or came out last
It's
year.
really good though. Cannibal Holocaust.
No, I've seen that too.
It's classic.
By the way, this is what Robert meant. Essentially putting a succession plan in place so you get a 2 or 3 person secret. I get it. So he has a bit. That's probably a more common business term I'm just not familiar with because it sounds like it would be. Have a plan in place that you get a second or third person so you can go to them. Kind of like having an assistant, what it sounds like.
Or just having people under you that are competent to do their job.
But you all are good to go. By the way, I'm going to turn off the recorder, but that is my lecture question. If anybody has any recommendations,